In this section, we're going to cover systems of nonlinear equations. So the first one here, we've got what is actually a circle and a line, and we're going to solve to see where these two things cross each other. So I'm going to take the second equation and solve it for x. And we're going to put that in for x in the first equation. And then we just go through and solve this for y. So if we've got 4 plus y squared, that's the same thing as 4 plus y times 4 plus y, so we have to FOIL. We'll get 16 plus 8y plus y squared plus 4y squared equals 16. And then we can combine like terms on the left-hand side to get 5y squared plus 8y. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract 16 for both sides, and that gives us 0 over on the right. So we've got 5y squared plus 8y equals 0. Solving this for y, we start by factoring y out to get 5y plus 8. And then we can set these both equal to 0. So we've got that y equals 0, and if we subtract 8 and divide by 5, then we've got y is negative 8/5. So we've got two options here for y. What we'll need to do is go back and solve for x. That's not what I want to do. I wanted to move it up. I don't think I have another page. Let's see. Okay. So we had x solve for. It's 4 plus y. So we had y is 0. We'll plug that in, and so x is just 4. And then we have x equals 4 plus negative 8/5. That gives us 12/5. So the 2 points where these two equations cross are 4, 0 and 12/5, negative 8/5. And if it helps, you can change those to a decimal. It just depends on what your problem asks for. But you can see our 2 points here, 4, 0, and then there's the 12/5, negative 8/5. Okay. This next one we're also going to solve by substitution. We've already got y equals here. So we've got 4x squared minus, and we're going to plug in for y, square root of 1 minus x squared equals 4. So we've got 4x squared. Square root of 1 minus x squared is just 1 minus x. Distribute the negative. And then we'll rearrange things a bit. So we've got 4x squared plus x minus 5 equals 0. factor that to be 4x plus 5 and x minus 1. We can set both of those equal to 0. And x would be negative 5/4 or 1. Take both of those and plug in for our y. So we've got y equals the square root of 1 minus negative 5/4. You can put that in the calculator or get a common denominator. You get the square root of 9/4, and that'll give you 3/2. And then with the other one, square root of 1 minus 1 is just square root of 0, which is 0. So our 2 points are negative 5/4, 3/2, and 0, 0. And you can see those here. Oh, that's supposed to be a 1, 0. Excuse me. Okay. The next one we're going to solve by addition, and we can do that because we have both of them as x squared and y squared, okay? If one is just x and y, then we couldn't do that. But, so this one we can. And so I'm going to take the first equation, well, no, let's do this. I'm going to take the second equation and multiply by negative 1. So we still have our first equation. And the second one is now going to be negative x squared plus 4y squared equals negative 16. And just like before, we add. And we get, our x squareds go away, and we get 9y squared equals 9. Finish this up, y squared is 9. So y is positive or negative the square root of 9. Wait a minute. We divided both sides by 9, so that's not right. Y squared is 1. So y is positive or negative the square root of 1, which is just 1. Okay, so if we use y equals negative 1 equals positive 1 in our equation, we've got, I'm just going to use the first one, so x squared plus 5 times negative 1 squared equals 25. And then we're going to go over here and say x squared plus 5 times positive 1 squared equals 25. So negative 1 squared is just 1, and 1 times 5 is 5. So we end up with this here. X squared is 20. And so x will be positive or negative the square root of 20. If we simplify that, 20 is 4 times 5, and the square root of 4 is 2. So that's positive or negative 2 times the square root of 5. Now we actually get exactly the same thing when we solve for x over here. And so what this means is that we have 4 solutions for this system. We have the solution negative 1, excuse me, that's the y value. negative 2 root 5 negative 1. We have negative 2 root 5 positive 1. And then we have positive 2 root 5 negative 1. And positive 2 root 5 positive 1. And you can see that here we have 4 points of intersection. And so that's why we have 4 solutions. In the next problem, we're going to solve this one by addition. So we just need to get it in a form that we can solve. So let's take this first equation and rewrite it so that we have x squared plus y squared, we've added y squared to both sides, equals 16. And we're going to take the second equation and multiply by negative 2. Actually, we're going to multiply by negative 1/2. So if we do that, then we've got x squared, negative x squared, minus y squared equals negative 4. If we add those, we see that both x squared and y squared, both our x and y, cancel out, and we get 0 equals 12. This is not a true statement, so that means that in this situation we have no solution, and we call this an inconsistent system. And we can see here why this is called inconsistent or no solution. It's because they don't cross. They're two circles that don't cross at all. The next system we're also going to solve by addition, and we're going to do that with U substitution. So in this case, we're going to let U be 1 over x squared, and we need to let V be 1 over y squared. So now we can plug in, and that means that our first equation is U minus V. Let me get that the right colors. Equals 1. And so the second one is 2 times U minus V equals 5. Okay, if we take this second equation and multiply by negative 1, then we get U minus V equals 1, and negative 2U plus V equals negative 5. That way we can add, and our V's will go away. So we have negative U equals negative 4, which means U is 4. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go back and solve for V. So if U is 4, using the first equation, then we've got 4 minus V equals 1. So negative V would be negative 3. V is 3. We're not done. We found U and V. We haven't found the solutions. Okay? We've only found U and V. So remember that U is 1 over x squared and V is 1 over y squared. if u is 1 over x squared, then that means that 4 is equal to 1 over x squared. Solve this for x, so multiply both sides by x squared. Divide. Let's see. It's supposed to be a 1. And then square root of both sides. So we'll get plus or minus the square root of 1/4, which is plus or minus 1/2. Then the second one, v, we found to be 3. And so we set that equal to 1 over y squared. And same type deal. Divide both sides by 3. Take the square root of both sides. And we get the square root, or plus or minus the square root of 3 over 3. 1 over 3. Now, we can't have a square root on the bottom, so we have to do our little thing where we multiply the top and bottom by root 3. And we end up with plus or minus the square root of 3 over 3. So again, on this one, we have 4 solutions. So we have every combination here. We've got negative 1/2, negative root 3 over 3. We've got negative 1/2 positive root 3 over 3. Positive 1/2 negative root 3 over 3. And positive 1/2 positive root 3 over 3. So those are the solutions to this system. Our last example is an application. It says a right triangle has a hypotenuse measuring 13 inches and an area of 30 square inches. Find the length of each leg. So we've got a right triangle, and it says the hypotenuse is 13, and we are going to call the legs x and y. We know that the area is found by multiplying the length, or 1/2, the length times the width, or 1/2 base times height, and that's 30. So that's our first equation. The second equation can be a Pythagorean theorem. So x squared plus y squared equals 13 squared. That gives us x squared plus y squared equals 169. So here are our 2 equations. Let's solve by substitution, definitely. So the first one we need to solve, I'm going to solve it for y. So if we multiply both sides by 2, that gives us xy equals 60. And divide by x, so y is 60 divided by x. We've got x squared plus y squared equals 169. And we just said that y is 60 over x. Okay, so now we go through to solve this. We need to, let's see, first I'll go ahead and square here. That'll be over x squared. And we want to get this so we don't have a fraction. So what I'm going to do is multiply everything by x squared. If we do that, then we have x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. It gets rid of the x squared on the bottom, so we just have 3600, and then we have 169x squared. Rewrite this so we can solve it easily. We've got x to the 4th, subtract 169x squared from both sides, plus 3600 equals 0. This can be factored. So that would give us x squared minus 25 times x squared minus 144. So what multiplies to give us 3600? That adds to give us negative 169. It's negative 25 and negative 144. Take each of these and solve for x. So we've got x squared equals 25. That means that x will be, I'm not going to say plus or negative because we can't have a negative side, so just positive 5. And here, x squared equals 144, so x would be the square root of 144, or 12. We plug that back in for y. Y is 60 divided by x. So we have 5 or 12, and that actually gives us 12 or 5. So our legs would actually be, in either case, 12 and 5. Five inches and 12 inches. And that concludes this section.